The goal of today's meeting is to go over and inform the parish where we are in progress in terms of our new sanctuary. So, with that, I want to make some introductions here today. Our spiritual directors, I'd like to welcome Father David Ramirez. Could you please stand up? Father David is the director of the Hispanic ministries here in the diocese. He is is very involved with the Hispanic masses, as well as Father Alejandro Godinez. Is he here today? Could you please stand up too? Thank you. If y'all could please make a point to welcome them and tell them hello. And thank you. And of course, not last but not least, but Father Jacob Dio and Deacon Simeon and Deacon Ken are here also. So, Mr. Ken Levinson, did I leave you out? Sorry. And we also have some guests here. We have Arthur Heredia, who is the area consultant with Walsh and Associates, who we have hired to do the feasibility study. Thank you. We also have Gina Emanuel. She's with Centric Architecture. And then, of course, the building committee members. If y'all could all please stand so everybody could see who you are. We have Mark Moshe, Barrett Jones, Sandra Martinez behind me, Desi Johnson, Bill Elliott, Tom Crafton, Ricardo Lainez, Dorian Quezada, Kathy Nichols, and Buddy Meacham, and myself. I just wanted to say before I go on to the next slide that there's been many other people involved throughout this process that have given their time and volunteered help. I want to thank all of them also. I think everybody has pulled together like St. Luke typically does and has worked together for the better of this community. So, one of the statements that Deacon Ron Deal made back in 2011 when we started this process again was that this was a marathon, not a race. It's going to take a lot of effort and a lot of time, and we need a lot of patience. Things aren't going to happen overnight. And today's meeting is a perfect example of that. This is the point where we're trying to hear back from you and get your input, negative or positive, okay? For the main purpose that when we generate this feasibility study report that Arthur is going to write for us, that when we give it to the diocese, we have a good representation of what the parish wants, what the parish can afford, and what we're willing to do. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to inform you of what the progress we've made. I'm going to go over a little bit of a history and background as to how we got to where we are today. Then we're going to look at our capital campaign. We're going to look at the cost estimates we got from Carter Group with the plans that we currently have and also our financials from St. Luke's. Then I'm going to go over the drawings. Hopefully everyone has had a chance to see these. They've been set up in the narthex during Mass, after Mass, before Mass. If you have not seen those, by all means, take a chance, if we take a break, to go look at them. I'll also be presenting them up here. So then we'll introduce the feasibility study, and that's where Arthur Heredia will take over, and he'll explain what that process is and what we as parishioners need to do. And then we'll have a questions and answer session. So what I ask everyone is if you please save your questions to the very end. We have a lot of material to cover. There's a 5:30 Mass. We have to be out of here and have all the chairs put up before. So we'll have little pieces of paper and pencils. So if you have questions, you can write those down. If you don't like speaking publicly, we can pass the basket around and we'll collect those questions. We will have a question panel up here to answer and field everyone's questions. So, we started this process way back in 2007. At that time, Father Richard called us together to start thinking about a new sanctuary. Some of y'all may remember that. We've had a lot of changes of faces, but I think there are a lot of people still here that were involved in that. We were asked, Mark Moshe and I were asked to co-chair the building committee meeting. And don't worry, I'm getting to the part where did all the time go. So on January 29th, 2008, we formed the building committee. We determined who those members of the building committee were going to be, and so that time between the fall and September of the fall and January of 2008, we basically, Mark and I were determining what path we needed to go and how we were going to organize the building committee. So once we had the members, we started to discuss our plans and what we wanted to do, and we found out real quickly, well, we didn't know what the diocese wanted us to do. We didn't know what the parishioners wanted us to do. So we had some ideas from the discussions and the meetings that Father Richard had had. And so Mark and I met with Bishop Chobe in September of 2008, and he shared a lot of things with us. He just as an example, he said, I want the tabernacle to be the central focus in the Mass on the altar. He did not like it off to the side, and we agreed with him. He also wanted the choir stationed in the back. He said the focus of the Mass is the sacrifice of the Mass, and that's what people should be focused on during the Mass. But he also didn't want to play down the choir. He thought the music is very important to our worship. He wanted them to be within the congregation. So this is why you'll see them in the seat. We've taken out some of the seating and we've put that in there. So we've got a lot of good information. He also told us, and I want to just kind of point this out, he told us he wanted us to build a church for 800 seats, expandable to 1,200. Now that's going to change later on in the presentation, so just hang on with me there. So in December, a lot of y'all may remember Tom Scott. Tom Scott produced a feasibility study that looked at the demographics of the Smyrna area. The bishop asked us to produce this because he wanted to see if it was viable to do a larger church in the Smyrna area. That report that we submitted to the diocese showed that we do have the capacity and we do need to expand. In fact, if y'all recall, when Bishop Chobe said Mass here, he emphasized that possibly not only enlarging this church, but also building another one within he really didn't say where, but I think his thoughts were the Nolensville area, but there's no guarantee there. That's just him talking. I think he mentioned that in the Mass. Then, now you're here to see the blank. We had a recession, and this is where basically nothing happened. I went to Chattanooga and commuted every week to the Volkswagen plant. Some people lost their jobs. A lot of things happened in that time frame. So pretty much the building committee just went on hold. We didn't have meetings. We didn't do anything. Then December of 2011, we resumed our discussions and we started talking about the sanctuary again. We regrouped in October and we started talking seriously about what do we need to do next. And if you recall, we had the bishop come over. We had kind of a discussion. Deacon Ron Deal showed up. The bishop was here. We had them sitting over here. We discussed what the next steps needed to be. Between October and January, we looked at 6 different architects. The building committee reviewed these architects, and we went through a very tedious process of finding out who had the best product for the money, who had the best price. And we didn't necessarily go with the least price. We were trying to find an architect who would respond to the needs of St. Luke's. And that's very important for the design of a church. We sent our recommendation to the bishop, and he authorized us to hire Centric in March. So 2 weeks later, we had a kickoff meeting, and they started working on the design of the job. And then, back up a little here, after we had I don't think I'm not putting my mouth in this enough. After we had done the master plan and the schematic design of the building, we got Carter Group, who donated their services to do estimates for this. This is where this big void we had. We still didn't have a budget at this point. We didn't know what it was going to cost or anything. So we had Centric do the schematic design for the mere purpose of developing that envelope and determining what kind of cost are we looking at. So Carter Group came in and did an estimate, and then we took that estimate. It was high, and we asked them to take a few things off to lower it. We asked them to take the side chapel off. We asked them to reduce the seating to 600. There were several little things, that we asked them to do, and then we got another price. And then we took that price to the bishop. We had an audience with the bishop, and we basically, that's where we are today. We've taken all this information, and now the bishop says we need a feasibility study to see if the parish will support this effort, if they will finance it, if they will support it, and so on and so on. So before we can start a capital fundraising campaign, we have to have that report done that Arthur is going to be speaking on later today. Okay. I know this is probably what you've all been wanting to see. This is the first cost estimate that we got for the plans that you've seen. Now, what this includes is the cost for the sanctuary, which is this $4 million, and that also includes a fee for building the office as well. The existing sanctuary will be repurposed into an office. You have not seen those plans because those took a back seat for now as we started to discuss the plans with the bishop and we started talking about the funding and the prices of the construction. You will see that there is a $400,000 contingency in this, and then there's a lot of other added things in here that we have to consider, such as furniture, fixtures, and equipment, designer fees, acoustic equipment, acoustic design, and then temporary offices also. There is a builder's risk in there, which basically we may opt not to do if we're managing that construction. So if you recall, we asked the architect to make a look at what a footprint reduction would be if we went to 600 seats instead of 800. Taking the side chapel off and doing some other savings. And you can see that we got it down to $4.8 million, from 5.5 to 4.8. Doesn't seem like a lot, but again, you'll notice that we still have the, I'm looking for it. I saw it earlier. Yeah, we still have the builder's risk. And I'll just a footnote on the acoustic equipment and the acoustic consultant. I have spoken with someone with our parish who has a lot of experience, works with a company that does a lot of provides a lot of acoustic equipment, and he felt this was high, but we were being conservative. Keep in mind we have to make sure we've allowed enough to have so that we don't end up short. Okay, here's what I'm looking for. So, Trent rental, one wide, temporary office, we still have that in there, but you'll notice there is no office in this fee. So if we take out some of these things that we were talking about, we've actually been able to reduce it to $4.2 million. If you take out just the contingency, for example, now that contingency basically is to handle mostly changes, and we control changes. There's no reason we should have changes once we get completed with the design, unless we run into unforeseen conditions such as unsuitable soils, where we might have to ship in $50,000 worth of suitable soil for infill. But those are things we won't know until we get to that phase of the project. So right now we have the contingency, and we are leaving it in there because we have to be realistic. Just so you know, at our audience with the bishop, one of the things that he expressed to us when we had this discussion of going to 600 seats, he basically relieved us of the 800 seat maximum for the build out now. However, he encouraged us to leave it at 800 right now, because right now, just to give you an idea, our sanctuary seats about 200 to 250. And with the overflow that we have in the narthex as well as in the cry room, we've estimated that we have between 300 and 350 people per Mass. Especially during holiday season when we have special Masses and we have guests in, you know that we've had people all the way back here in the hallway and can't hear the Mass. So there is a need for that growth so that we can get everyone in to see the sanctuary, because quite honestly, you cannot see the sacrament from back here. I've sat in Mass back here before, and it's a terrible setting. And I think everybody feels the same way about that. The bishop still would like us to design this so that it's expandable, but he has allowed us to expand it to only 1,000 because he feels like the demographics, he'll have another church, and that will relieve us of some of those parishioners. Now, let me emphasize too, the cost of construction. And I'm sorry, I'm getting off track here, Sandra, and I'll let you catch up. But it is cheaper to build 800 seats today than it is to build 600 seats and come back and try to build 200 or 400 later. Just something to keep in mind. So I'm not directing anyone to go one way or the other. What I'm asking you is to please keep that in mind when you're answering your surveys that Arthur will inform you about. Okay. Just so you can see where we are financially, I want to talk about, okay, what does this mean, a $5.5 million church for St. Luke's? What that means is right now the diocese requires that we have a third of the money in our bank before they'll even allow us to break ground and to start construction. There is a possibility that this could go to 50%. Right now, the deacon and the bishop have been working with St. Luke's. They know the position we're in, and so far they have not decided to go to the 50% point. This is part of the reason the building committee has been so focused on trying to get this thing moving so that we can stay within that third percent. So what does that mean in terms of construction costs? That means if we find that the feasibility study says we will support a $5.5 million church, we have to raise $1.8 million before we can break ground and start the design process for the final design. If the feasibility report shows that all we can afford is $4.2 million, we'll have to raise $1.4. Now, there's a possibility the feasibility study will show that we can't raise even 4.2. There's also a possibility it'll show we can raise more than 5.5. This, again, depends on all the parishioners and your involvement and how important it is to respond to the surveys so that we can get an accurate count so that Arthur can report to the diocese and the bishop can make a decision. Regardless, whatever that cost of that final construction is, we will have 15 years to pay it off. Now, before we will have, as I mentioned at the beginning, before the bishop will approve a capital fundraising campaign, we do have to have this feasibility study done. So, because he's going to want to see what this parish is willing to support. I just want to make a point that if you look at our liquid assets right now, the diocese requires that we have 6 months of money to pay for utility bills, things of that nature, just to keep us functioning. The rest of that is liquid assets. That's how much we have saved so far for the building fund. And some of these, if you notice, some of these are earning interest. We have them in bonds, and some not bonds, but CDs. So we're getting our money to work for us right now, so which is a good thing because it alleviates some of that pain of us having to come up with that. So the more we can put into things like this, and I don't know if the diocese will have another program like that, But this was a program that came up a year ago, and Father Jacob and Kathy and Tom, the rest of the finance committee, immediately jumped at the opportunity to get our monies making some money. So if that gives you an idea, we've already raised about $400,000 to $450,000 towards that 1.8 or 1.4 million. I want to add a couple more items to this. One of the points that Deacon Simeon made in our meeting, when this church is built, it's going to attract more parishioners. So we will be able to hopefully get monies from them as well to help pay off this church over that 15-year period. So keep that in mind. And then there was something else I wanted to say, and I'm trying to remember what it was. I'll let you go ahead. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is the architect's fees that we've been paying so far, and Walsh and Associates fees, those have been paid for in full through the same building fund. So you're looking at monies after they have been paid for the schematic design phase. So if that helps you understand that too. Okay. Again, I mentioned this is one slide nobody else has seen other than the building committee and a lot of people that were involved when we were going through the master planning phase. The whole intent of the master planning phase was to make sure we did not landlock ourselves and put a building where we're going to have to tear it down later. Okay? And point in case, if you look at this little outline right here, that's our house where the office is currently. You notice the sanctuary is going to be right over the top of it. So for the 800-seat capacity church, we're going to probably have to demo that house, and then we'll repurpose this existing sanctuary for that. If we go to 600, there's a possibility, a slim possibility, that we won't have to tear the house down now, but that's just something to keep in mind, that it's eventually going to have to come down. The other thing is you really don't want your view of this new church obstructed by a house sitting in front of it. So just something to keep in mind. This master plan, we went through probably 4 or 5 different varieties of master plans, for lack of a better term. And the traditional way that a church faces, our site did not lend itself to that. The bishop and the Deacon Ron Dill, the head of the diaconate, was in support of positioning the church the way it is currently shown, because it is the most usable and most inexpensive way to deal with the site that we currently have. It allows us to expand the parking lot. It allows us to eventually have a drive-through. By the way, the price does not include the drive-through at this point, but the Lazarus Committee has mentioned how nice it would be to have something covered when we have a funeral so that the pallbearers don't have to stand out in the rain, as well as the grieving. So this also includes thoughts of, when one day we may have to expand and do some other things with classrooms, halls, things of that nature. So we thought through this pretty thoroughly as to what the impacts could be. The back part of the site looks like we have a lot of land as a mountain. I'm sure you all know that it just slopes down. I'm exaggerating. It's not a mountain, but it is definitely more expensive to build on a slope than it is to build on a flat surface. And then a lot of comments were incorporated into these discussions that we had. The architect, Gina, interviewed lots of parishioners. She interviewed and got the needs, the wants out. Some of the things that came up was like a meditation garden. I think we all would like a place where we can pray in private and have some beautiful landscaping and things to look at. So that was the intent behind the master plan. Okay, so bird's eye view. Here's our existing sanctuary. Here's the classrooms, and here's the hall where we are currently seated, and this is the new addition. Now, it's arranged in a traditional fashion. I want you to keep in mind this is a schematic design. Detail has not been thought about, okay? No rose windows have been thought about at the front of the altar. None of the thoughts about, well, what is the Stations of the Cross going to look like? None of that has been thought through. It is way too early to be thinking about detail. Until we establish a budget as to what this parish is willing to build, it would be very naive of us to ask the architect to go ahead and design this. Because it's going to take time and money to pay them to do that design. So this is a box. This is a massing so that we can get pricing and have a starting point. So please keep that in mind. And I've heard a lot of good comments, and by all means, please voice those opinions. Write them down on paper. We can't address them if we don't hear them. The bishop has recommended that we keep our building committee to a small number so that decisions can be made, but that does not mean that we don't represent the parish. We do represent the parish, and we do want to represent your needs and your wants, your wishes. With that comes a little bit of reality, though. We obviously can't afford a $25 million cathedral. I would like one. I know y'all would like one. But we do have to keep those types of things in mind. So, again, just another point of how important it is that we emphasize that you do respond to these surveys and we get the best accurate picture of what this parish and what this community is willing to do. Okay, I'm going to real quickly go through these. There's really not a lot to say about these. Again, this is a massing of the shape. What we're trying to do is get an idea of verticality. We also took into consideration things like HVAC. We don't want to have to condition a bunch of space up in the stars. So you'll see where we've reduced the height. Actually, we've reduced it from this. It was even higher than this at one point. So we also made a couple of changes because the contractor that has volunteered to help us suggested some things that would make the structure cheaper. So there are some other things like that we're taking into consideration. Entry is a main focal point. We know this needs some work. Again, I've had some discussions with the architect, and by all means, if you have some ideas, please, by all means, share them. This is just a bird's eye view, giving you a little bit more better perspective of how it relates to the parking lot. And then what we have is a video, thanks to Brad Shapezi. And Brad, if I could ask you to speak for a moment. I know you got someone to help you with this, or I think you had someone. I think you got someone to do the speaking. Okay, so it's a fantastic video, and then after the video, I'm going to have Father David address the Hispanic community, which is the same community as ours, but we're separating as Hispanic Anglo, so we all, just kind of as an emphasis for everyone to know, it's been the building committee's goal to not have this wall between the Hispanic community and the Anglo community. We've been trying to tear that wall down, and mainly because we feel that we are one community, and so do the Hispanics. They feel very strongly that we should be functioning as one community. Granted, there are some cultural differences and some language differences, but all in all, we are one community, one St. Luke's community.
It all started in a small stable, in a distant and remote part of the world. God with us, Emmanuel. He came to us, to feed us, to heal us, to comfort us. He sent us around the world, commanding us, make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. We spread across the face of the earth, bringing with us his sacramental presence to all. For he promised, "Behold, I am with you always, until the end of the age," across continents and oceans, and even to the New World. And here, to Smyrna. Here too, as in the beginning, it all started in a small barn, our small barn, fulfilling our mission to Smyrna, to feed, to heal, to comfort, to love, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that he commanded, bringing his sacramental presence to all the people of Smyrna. Can you see God's hand moving? Can you perceive it? The Holy Spirit is moving. Can you see Smyrna coming? When they open these doors, what will they find? Will we have room? Will we be ready to feed them, to heal them, to comfort them, to love them, to fulfill the mission he gave us? To fulfill that mission, we must grow. St. Luke must grow to build the church where tomorrow the people of Smyrna will be fed, healed, comforted, loved, baptized. The church where God's sacrament will be present for all of Smyrna. It's time to prepare, to grow in virtue, in knowledge, in prayer. It's time to build for our future, for our children, for all of Smyrna, for the next generation. St. Luke, how will we respond? To build, we need to work together, to pray together, to raise money together. St. Luke will respond to feed, to heal, to comfort, to love. We will fulfill our mission for love of our Father.
Okay, I'm going to ask Father David if you could say a few words. They're very, very appreciated.
Bueno, ya les dijeron mi nombre, es David Ramírez. Estoy al frente del Ministerio Hispano. Muchos de ustedes no lo saben, el ministerio estamos atendiendo alrededor de 13 comunidades. Y de todas esas comunidades que nosotros atendemos, es la primera vez, Katy, padre, es la primera vez que nos incluyen en un proyecto.
Father David was saying that he takes care of 13 communities, and this is the first time that he's been invited to take part of a very important project. So he wants to thank Father Jacob for allowing and taking, him into consideration. He is willing to do whatever he can to work hard to help. At this point, he's not sure how or what we can do, but he's having meetings with Father Jacob. He's had 2 meetings, and they're going to continue to have meetings to see how the Hispanic community can help and what we can do. He is willing to motivate the Hispanic community and do everything possible to make the Hispanic community feel supported and for this very important project. And once again, he wants to thank you and say that he's willing to work hard, as well as himself and the other priests and the nuns that form the Hispanic ministry.
Para poder sacar este proyecto que que nos están presentando hoy en este día. Cuenten con todo el apoyo y toda la ayuda del Ministerio Hispano. Ya posteriormente el padre Jacob y yo vamos a tener una reunión y vamos a tratar de sacar lo mejor para poder ayudar en este proyecto que ustedes están presentando.
Father, would you like to speak a few words as well?
And our time is precious, and I'll try to be brief. Father David, Father Alejandro, Deacons Ken and Simeon, our special guest Arthur and Gina, the building committee, and you, my brothers and sisters, we are excuse me. We are gathered here today to make a history at St. Luke Catholic Church, Smyrna. We are here today with a common goal to build a community of worship and love, and to address to the ever-growing needs of our community of St. Luke. There is little question that we need more space in this growing area. A new church is the best answer to this problem. You know, our present facility is just too small in many areas. Inadequate seating in the sanctuary forces people to sit in the narthex and even in this social hall. Not enough storage space for all the groups using the facility at the present time. Lack of sufficient parking. Not enough meeting spaces for all the different ministries now in the parish. No proper practice area and sound system for all the music ministries. A new church, like Matt Fell has mentioned, and Deacon Simeon, would inspire people by its beauty, help them to feel closer to God, and attract new people to the parish. In the past, as you are well aware, St. Luke Parish have always been a very generous parish. We have turned a horse barn into a church, built a pavilion for various usages. We have enlarged a parking lot, added on a social hall, classrooms, and always have been responding to charitable appeals such as the last resource, food banks, and many more activities. All these have been made possible because of the generosity of each parishioner. It will be absolutely necessary for all segments of the St. Luke Parish family, old and young, rich and poor, Anglo and Hispanic, to respond generously to our upcoming capital campaign for the proposed new church. We would like to consider sacrificial giving. You know, sacrificial giving is realizing that everything we have is a gift from God. Our church calls us to give of our time, talents, and treasure to a degree that it may mean setting new priorities in how we spend our money after our basic obligations are met. Do we really need or merely want much of the things we spend our money on? God asks us to give from an attitude of gratitude, cheerfully and not reluctantly. From the Gospel of St. Luke, chapter 6, verse 37, we read, "Give, and there will be gifts for you, a full measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over will be poured into your lap, because the amount you measure out is the amount you will be given back." In closing, I request all of you to start praying for this upcoming project, for prayer is what is most required at this moment. And let each one of us consider seriously that this may be a one-time God-given opportunity for me. What can I give or do? keeping in mind that God loves a cheerful giver. God bless you all.
Okay, I'm going to now ask Arthur to please. We're going to give him our undivided attention.
Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. How about everybody stand up? ¿Por qué no se levantan? I feel good. Been sitting down for a long time. Yes. I feel so much better. Yes. All right. Very good. Se siente mucho mejor. At the same time, let's do a little bit movement. Vamos a movernos un poquito más. Let's do a little bit more. Something else. Why don't we look to the left and to the right and to the back of you? And realize that we are all here in brothers and sisters. Se están viendo a la derecha, a la izquierda y atrás. Y realizamos que somos hermanos y hermanos en Cristo. And we're going to do this together as a family. You're going to do this together as a family. Van a hacer esto como familia y lo que van a hacer a través de este proyecto se hace como familia. So, if everybody's okay, you can sit down for a little bit and relax. Felt good, didn't it? Se sintió poco. Well, first of all, antemano, quiero darles las gracias a todo el conjunto del comité que coordinó todo esto. I would like to thank the committee and the group that put this thing together. It took a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of effort. Esta coordinación tomó mucho tiempo y esfuerzo. Entonces, les damos las manos. We'll applaud the folks that have accomplished this process, but as well, y también no hay que olvidar, you cannot forget you, a ustedes, los que están aquí, that are here. Why? Because you show that you care. You're here because you care. Están aquí porque care. Soportan el proyecto, aman a la parroquia. Es algo que es importante para ustedes. It's important for you. So, with that, I'd like to give the committee, the members, and yourselves a big hand. Thank you very much. I'm basically, this is, I've already mentioned this to the committee and to Father Jacob, that this is your show. This is for you. You're doing this for your community. You've done so many things already. I'm only here as a small part, only to inform you as to the process that we're into as far as the feasibility study. Este programa es para ustedes, es de ustedes. Yo tomo una parte muy pequeña solamente para avisarles, dejarles saber qué es el proceso. ¿Y qué es what is the purpose? The purpose is basically to assess the areas that will have impact on your proposed project and the campaign success. For example, we want to find out what's the satisfaction of the church. Awareness and acceptance of your proposed project and the components and the proposed campaign. The competition for funds, if there's any in the area. Your volunteer and financial potential, which are critical to the success of the campaign. As you are aware, the church is planning a major capital campaign to raise the funds needed to build a new church and to enlarge and improve the parish facilities. And how do we find out the things that we just mentioned? We're going to be conducting a fundraising feasibility and planning study as a preliminary step to get some feedback on our plans and to assess the funding potential. The study consists of personal and confidential interviews so that we can get your feedback on the proposed project and campaign. There will also be an opportunity to give your feedback via an online survey. So anyone that's not going to be interviewed personally, there's that potential, because it's very difficult for me to interview 300 people in a short period of time that we're here. The interviews are going to The interviews are going to be conducted from Sunday, February 9th through Tuesday, February 11th. By me, a representative of Walton Associates, which is a firm that specializes in working with churches to determine their capital fundraising needs and conduct those efforts. The interviews will be held in the here on the campus. Everybody that knows where they're going to be there, you're going to be there. The purpose in the process is to solicit feedback and ideas of what we're doing right now, not donations. I'm not going to hang you upside down and shake every coin out of your pockets. That's not the purpose at this point. The purpose of that is, again, to continue to get feedback from you. It's private and confidential, because the best report that I can give back is the information that you give me. There's an old adage that says garbage in, garbage out. So I need as open and frank answers to the questions that I'm going to be asking at this through this interview process. And finally, I will take that information, tabulate it, send it back to the president of the company. We'll talk back and forth, evaluate it, and come back with what is feasible and the best way to proceed with the answers that we, from the results that I acquired from the feasibility study. Entonces, eso es mi parte. Muchas gracias por haberme invitado. That's my part. Thank you very much for having me here, and look forward to working with many of you. Espero la oportunidad a visitar con muchos de ustedes. Gracias. Thank you very much.
It's starting to look like the Olympics, where we watch the Russian and then the English version. So I just wanted to let everyone know that we're going to go into the questions and answers phase now. It is 4:30. We have to be done by 5 for 5:30 Mass. Is that what Father asked?
Very late, preferably quarter of.
Okay, and I do want to emphasize again, if there's no time for your question, please write it down, and we'll pass out the collection basket so that we can get it answered, okay? Father Mike, would you like to say something? Please.
Okay, for those that don't, my name is Father Mike Rourke. I me llamo Padre Mike Rourke, and I have a long, rather spotty history with St. Luke's. My classmate from the seminary was the founding pastor, Father John Kirk, and good friend, I might add. And my brother and sister-in-law were founding parishioners. So I have a great affection for St. Luke's. And I want to just urge one thing out of all this stuff that we have processed here. Think big. Think the 800. I was pastor of St. Alphonsus in Crossville from 95 to 99. They had built a beautiful church in 1978, and they said, this will last us until the year 2000. Well, it did, but then it couldn't be expanded. They couldn't go anywhere with it. They had to start from scratch, and I saw them through the initial phases of that process. I'd rather have all my teeth pulled. Let me tell you, too, another thing you've got going for you. Father Jacob, I have known a lot of priests. I've been a priest 43 years, and I've had many experiences. I've been in 4 different dioceses at one point or another. He's one of the best. He hates for me to say that. You guys are really blessed in having him at the head of this. Keep in mind, and this is scientific studies, building a church is the most stressful thing a priest can be asked to do. Be good to him. Okay? That's all I'm going to say for now. I want to be as actively involved as I can in this. Officially, I'm just one of you guys. You know, I'm retired, but I will certainly do what I can. Financially, as much as I can. My diocese at home has big needs because they've been through a bankruptcy, but as that eases up, maybe I can get a little more in this direction. God bless you guys. I'm so proud to be here in this moment of your history.
right, hi y'all. I'm Sandra Fange. To you. I've got more things for your consideration, not so much a question, because I know that this is in the schematic phase, but I've got a couple of concerns for you guys to look at. I'm a choir member of several different configurations, and where it is in the schematic right now, I don't see where there's a conceivable sight line between the choir and the organ or the piano. And that's going to be something that's going to be needed for not only the choir, but for the director. And if you have funerals or if you have weddings, there's going to be needed sight lines between whoever's directing those particular types of services. I found that the size was somewhat smaller than what we already have right now. It doesn't leave us any room for growth at all. Possibly, if you leave it in that particular area, we're going to need to knock out a couple of more pews because we intend to grow. Don't forget that there's space needed for guitars, drums, because we all have our different needs. Our Hispanic community has bright, happy, wonderful instruments, and those take up space. And some of us we do as well. Back over underneath that area where that is placed, the acoustics are much like at St. Rose, and that tends to be extremely poor, and it's very hard to mic. You may want to consider moving the choir further out underneath in the tall section of the building. Just something for you all to look at. Storage for all the choirs. I know it's planned to be over in the office space areas, but a little closer would be nice if we could have it, please, please, please. The Scola doesn't use mics and can't stand in the current chosen area because nobody will be able to hear them. Miking will need to be adjustable per group because everybody has a different style and need for those. I had heard it once it might go just to be adjusted to one thing for each service, and that's not going to work, just so you know. Don't forget the weddings and the sight lines for them. Again, as it sits right now, the director for any choir would have to stand in the aisle. That's kind of tacky, for starters. And that particular space, as it sits right now, is a very odd shape, and the only way really to use that is to put risers in it to make use of the space for a choir, but then we'd be blocking the sight line for the people in the pews that one thing over. So just stuff for you guys to look at.
Just one of the things that I would like to, you mentioned acoustics. We are very concerned about the acoustics, and this is why we would like to hire an acoustics designer to help us with that. So that's just, again, those are some of the details that we haven't gone over. But does, Gina, do you have anything that you want to respond in that regard? Or are you just taking notes?
I'm taking notes.
Okay.
That's what it was for.
Yeah. Did you want to go ahead and, anybody else?
I don't really have a question. I just have a statement to make that we really need to take into consideration. Don't settle for something right now that 5-10 years from now we're going to look back and say, I wish we'd done this, I wish we'd done that. I agree with Father Mike that we need to think big. If we make this a very attractive looking church from the road, it's going to attract more people who want to come to the church. And I've been through buying houses and moved in it. 2-3 years later, it's like, I need more of this, I need more of that. I wish we'd looked at that house. Just thinking about that when you're going through your process here. That's all I got.
Anyone else?
How many active members do we have? Does anybody know?
We have about 350 families.
Okay.
Which is about 900 individuals.
Okay, that's 950 people.
That's
yes.
Anglo side, because our Hispanic people don't register. But we know there's at least as many Hispanic as Anglo.
Okay, now how many did you say now?
We have
families?
about 350 families.
Okay. I've never known, and no one's ever said, it's never been published or anything, and you wonder how many contributing families we have.
Well, and of that 350 families we have, and that part is posted in the bulletin, maybe 150, a little bit less than that, actually use their envelopes. That's how we can count people that are giving continuously, regularly.
This is what we need to do to encourage people to use their envelopes.
And we also have a building fund envelope now and that we've had for the last year that allowed people to start giving so that we could start building up those funds. Father David is talking about doing the same thing with the Hispanic community as maybe a way to get money from them to allow them to donate. So I think that's still in the works.
I'm Mark Beach. I've been here most of the time that this parish has been here. And this is just something that I would like to see, and I think it might be of help for everybody else. I was here when we built this building and facilities, and we went through the campaign funding and so forth, and the same thing when we remodeled the church. I think in both of those instances, we were given 15 years or whatever to pay it off. This church has always paid it off earlier than what we needed to pay it off. So that's one of the things that I think it would be helpful for all of us, that if either on an insert in the bulletin or someplace, there was that information that, when this building was built, this is how much it cost, this is what we funded, and this is how long it took us to pay it off, because that is information that I would like to see, because I don't remember that exactly. I know we paid it off early, but I don't remember how much we had to fund, and I don't remember how early we paid it off. So that's just...
And if Buddy Meacham was here today, unfortunately, he has to work. He has those numbers on the tip of his tongue at all times.
And I'm passing the basket around for those who want to put their questions in the basket too. So if you don't want to speak.
It's not for collections.
Unless you want to.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want to write your question on a dollar bill, we'll answer the question. Dollar bills.
Yes.
What other questions?
I just wanted to know how much of the $549,000 that we had, that's our total cash on hand, how much of that can we say is our building fund, and how much of it, you said some of that is the 6-month contingency fee we have to hold, and
right.
That. So how much of that, because that's all total liquid right now,
that's
right?
all. That's everything we have in the bank
so
right now.
So how much of that number is what we would have towards our 1.4 or 1.8 or whatever that number is?
We need to keep about $100,000 in our checking and saving combined. So other than that leaves us, $400,000 to the good.
400.
Right. I think we came up to like 25%. That's what we've got it.
It was I think 400 to 450 is what we had 359 on the slide, and then if there was 100,000 for the 6 months, then it was about 450,000. So we've got a written question here. I'll let Ricardo interpret it and read it.
Somebody from the Hispanic community is asking, how possible will it be for the Hispanic community to have a Mass on Sunday?
To have a Mass on Sunday. Okay. Father Jacob is hearing confessions right now. So I think that's one that we'll have to get answered. And maybe Father David if Father David's still here, he may be hearing confessions as well. I don't know. But if neither one of them are here, we'll have them address that question and put it in the bulletin. Is Father Alejandro here? Father Alejandro, would you like to speak towards that?
He said that's a subject that's been addressed with the bishop. They're still talking about that. There's a lot of communities like Murfreesboro that doesn't have Mass on Sunday in Spanish, as well as Smyrna and other communities. So they're still, talking to the bishop to see which community would be able to provide Mass in Spanish on Sunday. So it's something that he's not able to answer right now, but they are working on that.
All right, one of my questions that I like to ask is, number one, and I'm going to say both in English and Spanish since I'm bilingual, okay? The reason some of the folks are asking is why haven't the Hispanic registered? ¿Por qué los hispanos no están registrados en la iglesia de aquí, de la parroquia Padre? Dígame, pregúnteme, la pregunta es para usted. ¿Por qué los hispanos no están registrados para la parroquia de aquí de San Lucas? ¿Por qué? ¿Qué es el proceso? ¿Por qué se está tardando tanto? Why is the process being prolonged?
You say that it is something that they had worked on. They actually are starting to do that. They're starting it at Sacred Heart. They have the applications, the registration forms, and that is a process that's already started there. After they complete there, they're going to go to the different communities and start doing that. He's saying that that's not something that Hispanics are used to. It's not the norm that you go and you register at the churches. So that's something that they're dealing with right now, to trying to get them to feel like, you know, it's going to benefit them and they should register. I think the Father has.
And Father, could I, real quick too, I want you to speak too, Father, but keep in mind today is about the feasibility study and questions in that regard. We've had lots of conversations with the bishop in regards to of how that integration between the Hispanic communities and the Anglo communities occurs, and that falls into that category one that the bishop has asked us to be very patient. And so, Father, if you would please speak to that.
Speaking out of my experience, we found that if you can convince them that it's to their advantage to be on record in the parish, especially in view of a possible legalization. Always when these legalization things come up, they need to be able to prove that they've been in the country. And one of the best ways is parish records. So it's to their advantage to do that if you can convince them of that. It is countercultural. We had our kids with the DREAM Act when that went through in Maryland. We had their sacramental records, their families' parish registration. It didn't have a shred of legal, status or identification, but they had all that, and that was accepted as proof of their presence in the country. So it's of advantage to them to do that.
That's a very good point, Father. And thank you for speaking in that regard. Couple of other questions that I have here. I see hands going up.
If I could just comment before we break up here, the critical thing now is this survey that's being done. And the need for everyone to do the survey online. I'm not sure whether anyone has any questions here. Who was picked for the survey and how they were picked for that. But we need everyone to do that survey. Please, please, please.
Yes.
How far, if our feasibility study is not favorable, how far behind will that put us?
Her question was, if our feasibility study comes out behind, what will that mean for us? Well, it's a good question because we've asked the bishop the same thing, and the bishop said, well, we'll deal with that when that happens. But basically what it comes down to is the bishop would like to see us put our best foot forward, and that's why we're here today. We're here today to hear from you why it's so important, why Mark is stressing filling out the surveys. Spread this to your fellow parishioners who aren't here today. It's very critical that everybody responds to those surveys. You will have the ability to, we will give that, we'll probably put it in the bulletin, the website, where you can answer those
I was
surveys.
just asked that question. Where are we going to have the online survey? And we're going to have a link on our website for that?
Okay.
It'll be a link to our website, and once Arthur gives me what that code is, everyone that's registered, I'm able to either send them a letter in the mail or by email to give them that information. That's where part of our struggle to get this information out to the Hispanic community comes from. We don't have their contact information. And I've talked to Father David about that, and he said he would try and help with that part.
So the point that I think should be stressed, trying to steer it back onto the feasibility study, and I'm not trying to shun your answer or your question, Angel, at all, but it has been discussed, it's being worked on, and it's going to take some time. But yes, I think everything that Father Mike said and Father Alejandro said is very good points. And so please keep in mind, the more we can do as a community, the better that these things will work out together if we work together as a community. So you want to go ahead and got a mic? And I just want to say, excuse me, I just want to say I've got two more questions here, and I don't know if there's any more, but we are videotaping this, so we're going to be publishing this on the St. Luke's website as well. So by all means, if you talk to other parishioners, let them know that we are going to post this information meeting as well as some other things. So, yes.
But he's asking, what I know we talked about. What did y'all do when this church was first done? But what other comparisons do we have on how long it will take to raise 1.1, 1.5, or whatever it is? Is there something to go by where we can see how long it takes?
Unfortunately, not. I'm going to let Kathy speak to some of that, but I'll answer real quickly. Part of the reason for this feasibility study, this is what we're paying Arthur to do. Something that I kind of scanned over when we were going over the slides. The diocese would like us to raise that money for groundbreaking within 1 year, 1 to 2 years. There have been cases where they've extended it, but that's not the standard. The standard is the sooner we can raise it, the better. Obviously, prices could potentially inflate. So the longer we wait, the higher possibility of the price going up would be. So, and quite honestly, right now, the contractor that helped us with this basically stated that right now the prices have not gone up in a long time because of the recession. But he doesn't anticipate them to go up, but there's never any guarantee, as you know. Okay? Did you want to say anything, Kathy? Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Naomi Florentina. I would like to ask regarding the funds for the building funds. Will any of those funds be tax deductible to whomever donates?
Absolutely.
Does that answer your question?
And if someone wants to give us $1 million donation, that's going to really speed up how quickly we can break ground.
Well, let me also make a point that every diocese has rules about collections. Those collections are typically taxed by the diocese to help the diocese run, okay? Our building fund, we've been given specific permission, and you'll notice on your envelopes that there's a building fund checkmark place for that. We are not being taxed by the diocese for our building fund. All the money that's going in the building fund is going towards the building. So, yes, Dorian. Okay, Dorian, did you have something you wanted to say? Lazaro, sorry.
And the question is if the online survey... You got it? Okay. Oh. If the online survey is going to be for everybody, or is it just going to be selected people? So that's the question.
Sí, la encuesta va a estar en inglés y en español.
Okay.
Para todos. Sí, para todos.
We have time for one more question.
What we want to know is, does everybody in the parish get this survey, or is it only going to be a selected few?
Everybody on the online survey has access to that survey.
No, you just said everybody on the online.
That's what I meant.
Will get access to that survey, not a selected few. You just said, and I quote, everybody on the online survey gets access to the online survey. That means
That site has access to online survey, so they get the survey. We don't. I mean, well, everybody, Hispanic and English, both get the survey, the chance to do it. Well, all 350 Anglo families do it. Well, all 350 Hispanic families do it. Or is it only going to be 50 Anglo, 50 Hispanic? That's what I'm asking. All 700 or just a few?
It's online.
All
Anybody
700.
can go online.
Thank you. If they have a computer.
And you can go to the library if you don't have a computer.
Yes, go ahead. Okay. A quick question. If you do not have a computer, please let Kathy or one of the people on the building committee that we will get access for you. Okay, if that is a problem. We understand not everybody has access to online. So by all means, please contact us. We are out of time. Please, by all means, if you have some more questions, I have 2 more that we're not going to have time to answer that we will make sure get answered. But if you would, if we could get some volunteers to help us put these chairs back up, we would very much appreciate that. Oh, and most importantly, thank y'all for coming. Oh, excuse me. Before we go, we do have a prayer, and we should be saying it. Thank you, Sandra. We have a prayer that we have been saying as a building committee for some time, so if you would, we'll say it in English and Spanish, so if everyone could please, we'll start with the English first. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Father, divine architect, creator of our human family, risen Jesus, cornerstone of our faith, lover of us all, spirit of wisdom, builder of community, our inspiration and guide, you call us to build up your kingdom. Bless us with generous hearts, open minds, greater unity, renewed vision, as we seek to build a house for celebration and worship. May it be a home where all are welcome, nourished and empowered to be Christ for others. Amen.